one of the major differences is pension schemes. Pension schemes, so basically in France, something around 200 billion euros go into pension schemes, or basically French workers giving money for pension. But the big difference is that a very small fraction of it get capitalized. The vast, vast majority of those 200 million euros are being spent instantly to pay for retirement. So that's a big difference. That's a big difference because those 200 billion euros are not injected in the economy, and especially not invested in private equity, and especially not invested in venture capital. That's the first factor I see, which is very, let's say, it's a hard factor, it's a structural factor. Then probably you have another one, which is the appetite for risk. The appetite for risk in France, I think it's fair to say, is lower. There is a lower appetite for risk. And by the way, both for investors, but also for founders, which is one of the reasons the average exit in France is only 25 million euros. Why? Because an average French founder, when there is a check of 25 million euros on the table, it's like, oh, it's too good to be true. I take the check and I run.
Okay.
As
so
opposed
just to play the devil's advocate on this, who needs to do the first step? Because if there is a problem with risk, who needs to essentially make the first step? The entrepreneur or the investor? Because essentially, I mean, the strategy you design is essentially tailored on your analysis of the market, which is very pragmatic and which makes a lot of sense. But doing this is maybe preventing some entrepreneurs or businesses to take more risk.
No, I would say that's why I highlight the two factors, because the appetite for risk for me is something that is very hard to correct, to have an impact on. And even if you want to have an impact on that, you need at least 10 years. That's why I insisted on the first factor, which is the pension system in France. There you can make a huge difference, because even if your appetite for risk is low, if all of a sudden you have maybe not 100%, but let's say even, 50% of your 200 billion euros every year, 50% of 200 billion euros every year that gets capitalized and that is invested in the economy, well, guess what? It's going to make a big difference, big difference, even if your appetite for risk is low. Because even with the current system, even with a lower appetite for risk, you still have, I don't know the latest figures, but probably 5 billion euros invested in startups last year. It's not nothing. But if all of a sudden you take 50% of your 200 billion and that gets invested in the real economy, and a fraction of that goes to startups, your 5 billion becomes 10 billion, 15 billion very, very quickly. And it's much, okay. I see it as, let's say, I'm not saying it's easy to do. I'm saying it's easier to do that than to create a much higher level of appetite for risk in France.
Yeah. I mean, being French also, I understand, like, technically speaking and pragmatically speaking, it sounds very simple. But I mean, we both know how difficult it is to change the retirement system and pension system.
But it's interesting because it's another way to look at the retirement scheme that we have in France. I think we vastly underestimate the punishment we give ourselves by having a retirement system that is not capitalized. The instrument of power that Anglo-Saxon countries like the UK, that the US, of course, have with capitalized pension schemes, the instrument of power that they have with that is unimaginable. So I think we give ourselves a very bad punishment doing this.